James Baker here with Keynote Search with my good friend, I guess now, do I get to call you my colleague as well, David Booker?
So. I think you can, yes.
Excellent, David. So you and I have obviously known each other for a while, and you've had, whether it's the pleasure or the disservice of getting to see a little bit of what we've done with Keynote Group over the course of the last few years. But we've been working together on a pretty cool project to look at the post-placement process that we have for our clients. So I want to spend some time today just talking about that, kind of get your ideas on philosophically kind of what it's about, to ensure the success of people, and certainly help people understand why we think this is such a critical part of a recruitment process. Because, I've told you this before, but, when we started Keynote, we've always had kind of the focus on three things: find, fit, and perform. And I think, it's fair to say that we believe we've got a best-in-class find and a fit process. And what we were looking to do is find ways that we could maximize the success of the employer-employee relationship, particularly with that kind of focus on those first few critical months there. But, you didn't have to come do something with us, and you didn't have to come and help us with this process, but kind of maybe tell us a little bit about why this intrigued you when we started talking about this project together.
Yes, I think, James, even when we first met each other a number of years ago, you talked about the coaching aspect of the new hire. And for me, the objective of a placement is the productivity of the individual in the new role. And I've experienced many different roles, and executive roles and management roles. And the integration process is so critical to the success for the individual, but also for the organization. And so what I think you and I are working on here is to try and create an environment for not just getting the right person into the right role, but the right conditions for the individual to then succeed as quickly as possible. And I feel that the first 3 to 6 months is like the foundation for the individual's future career at that particular company. So bringing that together, the find, the fit, the perform, just works very well for me.
It's interesting because when we first started the business, I think about it's been 5 years now, we actually started with find, fit, retain. And I remember I sat with the CEO, a very successful individual here, from one of Ottawa's probably blue chip companies. And he said to me, James, he said, I love what you're doing, but you're missing something here, because I actually don't want people to stay if they're not performing. So we made that shift to find, fit, perform. And that for me was kind of like that epiphany where I suddenly realized that it's about supporting the success of that person. Like you say, it's not, hey, just get them there, make sure they stay. It's make sure they get there and they bring value, and they're actually valued by the employer as well.
Yes. And a key component there is the success is very much two sides. It's the company and it's the individual. And transparency in understanding what the individual is going through, what they need to go through, what the company is doing, the individuals in the company, the culture, etc. It's very complex, especially if one is joining at the senior level and you come in and immediately you have a certain degree of respect from people around you, and you've got to maintain and earn that respect. So I find that the complexity between the company and the individual needs to be transparent in order for there to be success.
But we're talking about people who have no pre-existing relationship. We've been through, and I'm not going to get on my soapbox too much, despite the forum we're in, but there's so much emphasis put on the recruitment process, and rightly so. Let's do a diligent, fair, equitable process. Let's find the very best person. But so often people are like, great, now you've got the new executive, the new leader. Good luck to you. I hope everything works out.
Yes. And, as an executive myself, when I'm hiring somebody, I'm not hiring to replace the position. I'm hiring for productivity. I either want to continue on with the path that the role has already got, or I'm looking to create something new. And so I'm looking for somebody who can fit with the organization, but move it forward. So the actual placement is very important, but the reason why I'm doing the placement is so that I can get productivity. So my focus is all on, once I've got the person, which I trust you bring the right candidates, once I have the right person, how can I make success quick, easy, and you can't guarantee success, but make it more assured than it would otherwise be. And James, I will say that there's a number of common obstacles, which we're probably going to get into in this discussion, but they're not, it's not rocket science. There's some things that we all go through on a cycle. And those are the things that we want to address in our program.
And I pick up something immediately you say, and this is always something that comes to me. The candidates coming in full of hope, expectation, they've been sold the dream. You, as you said, as an executive, are looking at this person. How do you bring productivity and value to my organization? For me, immediately it's saying to me, there's got to be a delta between that. There's got to be perception there that has to be managed, because I'm coming in thinking you're going to help me succeed, and you're looking at this person thinking, how's this person going to bring value to my business? I mean, that already creates some kind of potential risk or discourse between the two sides.
Yes. You have two conditions coming together at the same time. You have the desire, the optimism, the enthusiasm of the new hire, and you would expect the person to be eager and excited, looking forward to the new challenge ahead. And you have the organization who needs to move forward in their initiatives and are looking at this person thinking, great, we've got the right person. We think, because that's all we can do at the time, is we think we have the right person. We've followed due diligence and we've used your experience, James, to bring us with the right person. But we've still got to come together. We've still got to have this relationship development process that over the first 2 or 3 months is feeling each other out, finding out, what makes you tick? What's the culture of the company? How does it fit into my personality? So even though at the outset, I looked at the position and thought, I'd love to do this. This is great. And the companies looked at me and thought, you know what? This person's got lots of experience, seems like a good person. It's a good fit. You still got to do it. And doing it's the hard work.
It's all that hope and expectation. And and this is maybe the frustration I have in so many, I look at recruitment processes, and there's some exceptional processes I've seen, I've witnessed, I've seen, organizations hire, yet it stops there. And there's no deliberate action that really says, okay, you've decided you're going to come work with us, David. Fantastic. I'm looking at you to solve all of my woes and my worries. Let's go forward. But nobody's doing anything to create a collision, which is actually saying, let's deliberately find ways that when there's no pre-existing trust ultimately that's in place, where we can actually find a common ground that we can work towards the same objective. And so I find it drives me nuts that nothing has them. And I guess that's why we wanted to create this program, to say, how can we start to create deliberate activities, steps that's going to help during those trust forming weeks, months, days, whatever it may be after someone joins.
Yes. And I think the intention is always honorable by the company and obviously by the new hire. The intention to have a structured onboarding program to ensure that the training, the skills, the processes are all transferred to the new person so that we can get productivity. But in reality, apart from the fact that some companies simply don't have the setup to do that, but we're all very busy and we kind of get on with our day to day. And the individual who's in the new role wants to impress and doesn't want to say, I need help in most cases. So I think that the desire is there, the intention is there to have a structured, deliberate onboarding process. But in most cases, it doesn't happen. And so what we will do is to help keep both the company and the individual on the right path, to ensure that we raise the items that they probably see as well and maybe would like to address but don't. So we want to raise those items and make sure that if they're negative, that we can resolve them, and if they're positive, that we can expand on them.
So you're saying the intent is always there, and I agree with you. I mean, I don't think anyone wants the new executive to fail, the new leader to fail. I mean, that's the one fear everybody has, but it's whether this is a C-suite individual that's reporting to a board, whether it's a private company, and maybe it's it's a regional office of a national corporation or international corporation, is what we're doing essentially then creating and holding people accountable without the same time burden and responsibility?
I think that that's a part of it, yes.
Okay.
Accountability is key, and there are certain aspects of a new role that are, shall we say, objective, whether it's understanding the systems, understanding the decision-making process, the various things that we can teach somebody. This is what you do and how you do it. The area that I think most companies have a challenge with is, I'll use the word transparency again, is the human interaction. If you're moving into an executive team of 7, 8 people, there are very complex personalities rolled up into each person. And to infiltrate that inner circle is not easy. And there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of open agendas and items that the new person has to navigate, but also items that the existing executive team have to navigate. And it's often those not objective activities that cause issues.
And I always love to draw parallels with sports. I mean, we see some of the most talented sports players who go to a new team, a new environment, and they simply fail. And it's not because they've lost their talent. It's not because they've lost their ability, but they couldn't understand the structure, the model, the way that the team trains, the way they interact, the way the personalities come together, the different leadership style or coaching style. And I don't think business and sports has that many differences when it comes to bringing people together, because collectively in a team sport, you're as good as the function of your parts.
Yes. And using sports as the analogy, the word chemistry often comes out. And absolutely in a leadership team, there's a chemistry. Some of it's good and some of it's not so good. And again, transparency is so critical. I'm sure everybody who watches this will have experienced before where one person doesn't quite get on with another person. And that's natural in life. But it can be very debilitating if you're trying to move agendas forward, especially if you're new to the organization and you're first of all having to negotiate the characteristics of some of the key members of the team. So chemistry is so critical. And really, we don't want everybody rowing in the same direction. That sounds counterintuitive, but you actually need diverse skills, diverse thoughts that can come together. Kind of like letters in an alphabet. You've got to bring the different letters together in order to make a paragraph. So bringing these differences together to make you stronger, that's not an easy thing to do. And you're trying to do it in the first couple of months.
And often the person that's been hired is the change agent. So we look at a lot of right now, in the world we're in right now, it's critical hires to help change the function or the performance of an organization. So this person's coming in expected to be an agent for change, to bring different perspectives, change the way things have been done in the past, with the pre-existing leadership group that has its own conditions and way of working. And they don't have any trust, they don't have interpersonal relationships to rely on to overcome those difficult conversations.
Yes, and there's the sounding board that often they don't have. So if I'm coming in as a CEO of a new organization, and I know that there's a change that's required, I obviously want to work with the team and not just dictate to the team, depending on the circumstances. But who do I talk to? Who do I talk to ensure that I'm on the right path, or that as a sounding board, a secure sounding board, I might not want to go to the team because I don't want to show weakness to start with, or I don't want to create issues that weren't there already.
Raise flags and things you might want to do to the organization that suddenly creates this kind of wave of just uncertainty underneath you while you're still trying to figure things out.
Yes, and even for the CEO, if you've got a good board to work with, a functional board to work with, you might well have that advisory capacity. But even there, sometimes an executive might be a little bit cautious around talking about items that they want to get feedback on early on in the relationship. So we rely on our family and our friends. We share when we get home, we share the day's activities. Having a coach, somebody who has been in that seat and understands what it is that you're facing, having a bit of an insight to the organization provides that outlet. It's called almost like a valve where you can allow the steam to blow off a little bit. Having that outlet with somebody that is not directly invested in the company, but can give you a sound response to the issues that you're facing. Sometimes you have the answers in your mind already, but just having that confirmation makes things a lot easier.
So when you look at what we're doing then with this this post-placement process, this post-placement implementation, it's about saying, okay, so we've created this opportunity for people to come together and work together. We're now going to create a structure and a format that's going to give permission for them to talk, to raise questions, to ask the questions, delivered by somebody that has the experience, the expertise, the knowledge of whether it's the industry or the sector to say, I'm here to help everybody succeed in this new relationship. And I'm going to be that kind of, what do you call it, a moderator? Do you want to go, how would you describe the role of this, the person for us that's coming in to help this new executive and their new organization?
Yes. So it's important, as you just said there, is bringing everybody together. So everybody wants to win here. The company wants to win, the new hire wants to win, and we want to help you to win. So we're all aiming in the right direction. So that's good. Having somebody who's able to speak to both the company, the stakeholder, and the new hires, somebody who has experience of where both have been sitting before, to see some of the conversations, some of the activities that maybe is blind to the individual, it's a valuable commodity. So I don't want to say it's a moderator. I want to ensure that people realize that there's guidance and advice as well. So when you join a new firm, having specific structured steps to follow to ensure that the company's onboarding plan is actually being acted on, identifying who in the team is causing disruptions and who is really supporting the new hire. How do we interact with those people? These are specific steps that everybody goes through. We have what we might call a 50-hour rule. This is a concept whereby in order to really feel like you're part of the team, you need to spend significant time with each and every member and in a collective group. And it probably takes about 50 hours of interaction before you can really get to know an individual and understand whether you've got challenges or opportunities together. And that's where the coach, in the first period of your employment, the coach can help you guide you through the pitfalls, if you like, of building those relationships.
So they're accelerating the relationship building process. They're creating structure and the deliberate conversations. So, when things go well, it's easy. We meet, we decide we're going to work together, everything's rosy and wonderful. No critical conversations needed. But this is the real world. This is a world of pressure and stress and everything else is going on. Economic factors are in play. People have made brave decisions to make changes within their organization or even personally to take on a new role. So when it comes to having those difficult conversations, maybe help me understand or help people who are watching this understand, what is the role of that coach to help with those critical conversations in the first kind of 10 to 12 weeks while the trust building format's still going in?
So I think the first and most important aspect is identification. Identification of what are the real issues. So if I have a challenge with one of the team members, is it me? Is it them? Am I saying the wrong things? These are the kind of questions that go through your head, and you might be in a meeting and you might be reacting, and then afterwards you second guess yourself. So identification is very important. Is this actually an issue? Is this something that we should discuss? Is there something about your character or the other person's character that we need to work on? Or is this not an issue? And don't see every item as something that is forefront. So first of all, having somebody to share the concerns that you may have, and then having guidance on whether this is something that you really do need to address or it isn't. Let this one blow over. And then over a period of time, those interactions with specific individuals or the team in general will keep coming up. And the coach will help you understand, this is not probably going in the right direction for you. Let's talk about some remedial action for you. And it's you. It's not the other people.
Well, my wife tells me that all the time, so maybe she's right. But so we look at then what we're doing. So, we help organizations. So we're a client service organization. We work with private companies, non-profits. We work with tech firms. We've got financial services from groups as big as London Stock Exchange Group down to a community serving organization. So, what we're really then bringing to the client is we're saying we're going to give you the best in class recruitment process. We're taking care of that. But what we're now is bolting onto that is that real transition phase where they're getting up to speed. So what kind of involvement could they expect? How much time is this going to take? Because like everything else, we've said people are busy. We are going to remove some of the time burden, but we're still looking for people to engage in this process.
Absolutely. Engagement in the process is critical. Again, the word transparency, I use that because the company and the new hire have to buy into the process, that the objective here is to help your new hire get up to speed quicker and be more successful than they would have otherwise. We all know that it's a heavy investment to bring in a new person, and not just the cost of the hire, but also the loss of productivity during that process where you don't have somebody in a critical role, and also the speed, the ramp up speed at which the new person can fulfill their objectives, again, is a return on investment. So it's kind of incalculable to say how much should I invest in this. It's so critical to be engaged from the outset to ensure that the first 3 to 6 months you're building a solid foundation such that the person and the company can go on together for many years, and you continually reap the benefit in future years based on that first 3 to 6 months. So how much time does it take? Well, it's not as much time as you think, but probably 2 to 4 hours a month for the new hire and for the company to engage together to understand what we're doing, where we're at, where we're going, what are the remedial actions we need to take. So that there is a time aspect and it needs to be put in.
But those are triggers for other activities and other actions and other behaviors that are going to help their success, which is the ultimate thing. And when we start thinking about the benefits, and we were fortunate, we reflected on 5 years in business, and I was speaking with somebody I respect, kind of one of my mentors, and he said, what was some of the biggest takeaways? And I said, well, with post-placement and with the coaching service we have, we think we demonstrate a far superior, what we would call failure rate. So less of our placements are failing than our competitors. But also one of the things that we didn't really realize early on is that the knock-on impact of the people they work with. So every time we change an executive, there's an entire VP or director or a management core that's now working for somebody they didn't choose to work for.
Yes.
And so suddenly we've started to realize that the knock-on effect is less change if this person is properly onboarded, because the relationship building between you and I is now accelerated because this person's putting deliberate focus on it. So it's not just, hey, David, you're going to work with your, the chair of the board. You're actually going to work closer with your VPs and with your directors and with your managers, which you don't see the direct cost of that or the direct impact, but it has a huge bearing on, I think, the long-term sustained success of this as a leadership group and a leadership team.
Yes, there are, I think, 2 types of influencers in an organization. There's what I might call the natural leader. There's always somebody in a group that people gravitate towards, and you would hope, and for the company's sake, this is a positive person, a person believes in the mission and really wants to do good, and people are attracted to that person. And then there's the person who has the title, and you hope that they are a natural influencer as well. But a title brings a certain amount of respect, as we talked about earlier. And when you come into a new organization with the title, people will suddenly be in your circle of influence. And so how you treat those people, and it doesn't matter what level those people are, whether they're at the front desk or whether they're in the back office, whether they're, out in front of the clients, doesn't matter what position they are, they're all very important to the company. And so if you as a leader come in with the wrong message, that could be extremely detrimental. But equally, if you come in with not just a neutral message, but a very positive outlook and a very positive interaction with people that you come across in your company, it can have a huge effect on the growth of a company. And I have to say, I'm on a bit of a roll here, but I once managed an organization. We had subsidiaries around the world, and each of the presidents in these subsidiaries had a very similar economy, very similar, obviously similar product, but it was very interesting to see that it was the character of the president of each organization that drove the growth or minimized the downturns in bad economies, because obviously it's both ways. But it was very, very clear that the leader of the organization, their character, not just their skills and experience, but their character is what drove productivity.
Interesting. And I think I'm going to come all the way full circle here to something you said right at the start. No one intends or has an intention to, do a disservice to somebody in onboarding. But the reality is there's a lot of moving parts to this. We've talked about the team that works for them. We've talked about the team that works alongside as a leadership core. We've talked about other stakeholders, whether that's boards, whether that's customers, whether that's business partnerships in place. There's so many people in here that potentially could be an influence. So what we're essentially saying is we're going to provide you with a risk management platform and a support platform that's going to give your new hire the very best chance of success, because we're going to look at the smaller details.
Yes.
And we're going to say, you can still worry about having the right intentions, but we're going to have the checks, the balances, and most importantly, the process that's going to back it up to keep consistency that creates a bit more of a predictable outcome for every single hire that we make.
Yeah, so we've created an integration plan.
Yeah.
So this is not a company's onboarding plan. This is a plan that looks at things like the strategic objective of the company and how does my role fit into it. It talks to the personnel. What's their tenure? What's their position in the company? The decision-making process that they have. But it also talks to the skills that I need to fulfill the role, the training that I might require to fulfill the role. It also talks to the customer base. Well, what is your product? What is your unique selling proposition? How much are you bought into what the company is trying to do? So we've created an integration plan that we get filled out at the beginning of the hire, and then we review it every couple of weeks or so to see how it's developing. It's fairly common sense. However, it brings to the forefront all the items that everybody needs to address to have a successful onboarding process. And so it's the type of things that we probably think we do all the time, but we're making sure that we are looking at it in a very specific way.
And again, I still love it. I mean, I think both of us have benefited from peer networks and peer groups and advisory roles. When you have somebody in your corner who you can talk to in a position that sometimes can be fairly lowly as an executive, particularly a new executive within a new organization, you're in a place where you've got a reputation, a brand, you've got credibility to protect. You're under scrutiny, if I'm completely honest, particularly right now with some of the enforced changes organizations have put through. So we're giving that person that support mechanism. We're giving them a peer who they can lean on that has proven business expertise, experience, in a similar role to themselves, to give them every chance of success. And, no job is perfect, no person is perfect, but if we can help understand the imperfections and how we can actually find middle ground on those, I think we can help and really provide that integration platform that's going to support all of the right and good intentions our clients have.
Yes, and there's two words to talk to that aspect: trust and sincerity. Our objective, we said earlier about everybody wants to win here. Our objective is sincere. We don't just want to provide you with the right person. We want to provide you with the right person who's the great fit and will perform. And in order to do that, you need to have a sincere objective. It's not, if you don't mind me saying, it's not about the money. It's everything about how can we help you succeed. So there's a sincere desire. And when speaking with a new hire or anybody, there has to be a trust. There has to be a trust that what we're talking about here is our best. It's a genuine effort to be sincere to achieve that objective.
So me, I love a process. I love a process map. I love codifying things. And it's, even for me personally, I look at the evolution of our business and looking at the value this post-placement integration program brings to the business. I mean, what we did before was fantastic, but it just feels like we've raised the bar again and raised the level. And I'm excited for our clients to see it. I have to say I'm excited to work with you, despite your questionable taste in soccer teams and those types of things, David. So, I think it's an exciting time. I think the key part for us is the feedback we get from both sides as well. And it's one thing we maybe haven't touched on. Maybe explain some of those feedback loops before we kind of wrap up.
Yes. So at the outset, the structure was in my mind for the process, and like you, I like structure. I like to know, what am I going to do? When am I going to do it? How is it going to happen? What am I expecting to get out of it? So we built that. That was fairly straightforward. But then we spoke to a number of our existing clients, both the stakeholders and also new hires, and asked them, what do you want? What do you expect to get? And there were some critical refinements that were made to the program based on that feedback that we got. And I will say that we will continually refine it because, as you said, times are changing. And so aspects that we think are important today may not be important tomorrow, and we will refine it. So structure, process, refinement, and it's a collaborative activity.
And the one piece of feedback from that exercise, which I thought was a terrific exercise, is all of the candidates, the people that have found the job, loved having the coach in their corner during that. And so for us, it's not taking that away. We're keeping that element, but what we're trying to do is build more process and structure around that coaching relationship and that advisory relationship.
Yes, and visibility. So one thing I heard from a lot of our stakeholders is that they loved the fact that there was a program in place, but they weren't involved as much as they would like to be. So now they will be. And so visibility, clarity of progress is important.
Excellent. Well, David, again, so excited to be working with you. Thank you for sharing some of your thoughts on post-placement. And the program is one that I'm excited to see rolling out. We're working with clients on it now. And
yes,
certainly it's going to be a fun time working together.
Yes, I'm passionate about this. I'm excited to be working with you, James. And, it's onwards and upwards.
Terrific.